I know we're talking about the subject being empathy, and that's basically what I'm an advocate for. And let me tell you why I'm an advocate for empathy. I
Yeah.
think empathy is the answer to understanding not only ourselves, but one another. Because the more you understand other people, the more you understand yourself. I was, I was watching this documentary on Netflix about the heroin epidemic, right? How it has affected our communities. I think one thing that we don't understand and we don't recognize in that is how many people are addicted or attached to that addiction, right? So it's not the person, it's not just the person doing those drugs, it's everyone around them that's also addicted to that person's behavior.
Yeah.
So what I recognized was all of these symptoms or all of these reasons or all of these explanations that the drug abuser was giving, the family was giving as well in order, they were giving the same excuses in order to continue to behave the drug abuser, right? So I think only through empathy can you really understand that the drug abuser and the people around them are suffering from the same ailment, right? And that is their decision not to take accountability for the situation they're in, or at least to seek understanding and then take accountability for that situation.
Yeah, and that's hard too, because you were saying that the more that I can have empathy for someone else, the more I can have it for myself. And I think in the same way, the more I have a self-awareness and the ability to have self-compassion and to know that that's not letting myself off the hook. It's just being able to be really in touch with what's going on inside of myself. The more I can do that, the more I can have empathy for others. I think it works kind of hand in glove, right? I think it really creates a scenario where if we understand what empathy is, and it's obviously more than a feeling, there's behavior behind it. There's, like what you're talking about, people feed into that based on empathy. And I think to truly be empathetic and to truly have it has to be more than just a sense of, I understand what Chris is going through because I went through it. I can have empathy for you even if I don't have the same experience that you have. It's really showing up, being fully myself for you with what you're going through, whether I have that experience or not, and whether I can feel it in my system or not. I think it's far more than a feeling. I think it has everything to do with how it when someone's going through something or feeling something themselves, that it's a call there. It's almost a call to action for ourselves to be fully there and fully present. And in knowing that that's what we want in our own lives, is people to be present and to see us and to recognize us through that process, and not to be self-absorbed. I think a lot of times when we're dealing with other people's realities, we can ourselves become self-absorbed because we don't personally like to feel the stuff that they're feeling. And so why would I want to feel what they're feeling when I don't like to feel it myself, Yeah. And that's a big deal, man.
I remember making I think it was a Instagram post saying that my extreme sport has been an impact in the world of psychomania.
Yeah. That is an extreme sport.
So, but I've been able, and I've learned how to kind of deal with that. Right.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I would feel these emotions from other people, and then I would take them on and claim them as my own. Right. And that's when the energy would start to drain. And I give a training, and I go back to the hotel, and it's like lights out. I want to see anyone, I don't want to do anything, and then I'm gonna go to sleep. But what I've learned is that empathy is actually the intelligence that understands the emotion. Empathy isn't just the ability to feel what another is feeling, but to feel it and then to understand it and quite possibly give some type of definition, purpose, or understanding to it for that person, but first and foremost for yourself.
Yeah.
This thing has to be done. You have to empathize for yourself first before you have the ability or even the understanding to empathize with anyone else, right?
Yeah.
Because empathy basically says that I share this emotion and therefore there's a tendency for me to see it from a certain perspective. Empathy allows me to remove myself from that equation and basically put that person as a variable in the equation so that you can understand it wholly, fully. And I think what we're doing here is having the ability to do that and then to express that understanding to others. I think that's what we bring to the table. Is,
and that takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? It takes a lot of courage to honor someone's life experience in that way. And I like what you said about, I was reading earlier today about this idea of emotional bandwidth. I think when we talk about business, we always think about bandwidth in terms of how much time do I have to put toward this project. But we also have an emotional bandwidth. We don't have the capacity to be fully emotionally there for everyone all the time, in every moment, especially as you're saying, if you're an empath and you really take people's emotions on.
Yeah.
Not only do you have an account of emotions, but now you're taking other people's emotions on yourself. And that's a lot, because I think we have a capacity that we have to understand. And that's why the more we're self-aware and the more that we understand what's going on inside of ourselves, the greater we're able to show up for others. And knowing also, hey, sometimes we are going to get to a place where we've hit that capacity emotionally. We have to be self-aware to be able to recognize I can't be everything for everyone all the time. And there are going to be moments where, whether it's in business or relationships that we have, really it's relationships, right? It's relationships regardless of what the context is. There are going to be moments where we have to take time aside for ourselves and recognize that I'm only going to be able to show up at my best self when I am my best self. I can't be there for you when I've allowed myself to be in a state of wanting and of need in myself. And that also doesn't mean that I'm constantly self-focused, but sometimes it's going to feel a little selfish to continue to do self-care. But if you're not caring for yourself, I think empathy really is at its best, and we can experience it and choose it, I think, at its best when we are at a state where we're really caring for ourselves in a way that's caring for our own well-being, so that we can be that for other people.
Absolutely. You're spot on, Ryan, because I don't believe that we can give anything that we don't possess, right? So if we don't possess it and we don't have a true understanding of it, how can we actually give it? And this is the thing, you hit on a lot of really great points. And it's one point I wanted to hit on. Okay, so how do we take these touchy-feeling, emotional things, and how do we make it, I guess, beneficial, right, to the establishment of the corporate entity that we have, right? Now, corporate and emotion usually doesn't mix, right? But I think that the only reason is because there is a misunderstanding of the emotion.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. Well, I think you start by we have to stop saying that empathy is a soft skill.
Absolutely.
If it was a soft skill, it wouldn't be so hard to do. It's a hard skill.
It's for sure. It's a skill that takes intestinal fortitude, right? Probably more intestinal fortitude than any other skill. It's not a soft, fluffy thing, because in order to experience these emotions, people aren't just experiencing soft emotions. In fact, most people are experiencing fear, shame, depression, right? And you have to have you have to be tough. You have to have something else. You have to have experienced these things or gone through some type of fire to be able to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And for me, Ryan, the one telltale test of a good leader for me is the fire that leader has gone through. And the way that leader can show me or live by an example of that fire is the way that he has his emotions in check.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And having your emotions in check doesn't necessitate that you don't experience the emotion or you drown the emotion in our addictions or you ignore the emotions. And no, true heartfelt fortitude comes from observing that emotion for what it is, not trying to make it something that is not or fit into this idea.
It's an emotion.
It's an emotion.
It's not bad or good. It's an emotion.
It's what's happening.
Yeah, and that's why I think too, people think, well, this is a bad emotion or this is a good emotion. You know, if I'm happy, that's good. If I'm sad, that's bad. And that emotions are just emotions. Yeah. And I think we need to start at that. That's the baseline. What we do and how we allow ourselves to be led, like you're talking about, that's that reality of fortitude that comes in. It's exactly what you said. Sometimes we think fortitude is like a fortress where we just build up walls and we don't allow anything in or out. That's not a political reference, by the way. But look, life is messy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and to think that we're not going to bring who we are to work, like somehow we're going to check that at the door on the way into work. And then when we get home, we're going to check work at the door. We don't do that. Like we are who we are everywhere we go. And we can try to bottle our emotions or we can brood on it, you know, that bottling or brooding on emotions. And we can just be focused on it or push it away like you're talking about. But to be fully present with ourself, you know, like I'm looking at the man in the mirror, you know, and really taking that reality check of just standing butt naked in front of a mirror, looking at yourself like, this is who I am. This is, I mean, good, bad, ugly, it's Ryan, you know, and that is really hard because most of what we're conditioned to do, socially acceptable to do, is to put on a front and to put on a mask and act like, look, I got this. Sometimes we just ain't got it.
No, not at all. In fact, there's a saying, right? The emperor has no clothes. Right? He was afraid to let the emperor know that he was naked and because of the ramifications, or actually because of the accountability that has to be taken once you come into that realization. Well, Brian, we're all the emperor.
Yeah.
And no one has their clothes on, but no one wants to admit that they don't, that they bear themselves naked emotionally. And when you don't have a grasp of those emotions, someone else is controlling them. Now that's the scary part. And that's what I think you and I are here to do, is to help people or usher people into the understanding of their emotions. And once they deal with those, the world opens up. You can deal with anything because we are in fact energy in motion, emotion. So if you're not dealing with yourself as a leader, as energy, then you know what exactly are we really doing? So
it's a fear that what you're talking about is, you know, I think people when we act like we're not naked in front of the world and we do see ourselves as being covered up, it's kind of the image of playing hide and go seek when you're a little kid. And the way that you hide is you just close your eyes thinking nobody can see you because you can't see yourself.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's spot on, right? Because the fact of the matter is the root word of ignorance is to ignore, right?
Yeah, sure.
We don't know. We know because the heart is the center of intelligence of the entire universe, right? So you have access to that knowing. In fact, you have that knowing. It's just depends on what you choose to ignore.
Sure.
And
that's good, man.
Going back to emotions, we're going to find out, okay, now that I'm experiencing this emotion, what exactly is it that I have chosen to ignore? What is it that I'm afraid of no clothes on? Because I tell you whether or not you're afraid to recognize it or not, you're naked. You have
Yeah,
no going
right. But we're afraid. We're afraid of being found out. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I think I think for sure that's cultivated out of the ground of shame. And
Yes.
and when we feel a sense of shame, I mean, it goes all the way back to, the story of the garden, where when we see ourselves as being naked and we feel a sense of shame, the first instinct that we have is to cover ourselves up. You know what I'm saying? And that's what shame does. How I know I'm
Absolutely.
experiencing shame is I'm trying to cover that up because I'm ashamed, right? And that, I mean, how do you find yourself, Chris, in a place where you find those people in your life where you can be honest with? Because I think it doesn't come from a place where you just run outside and say, here's who I am, love it or leave it, to the entire world. That, empathy for yourself and for others is just as much about experiencing it in small doses until it starts to become more a part of who you are. I think empathy can be natural for some people that are more of an empath and have more of that sense of connection with others, like you're talking about emotionally with people. But I do believe that self-awareness is connected with empathy. I know that self-compassion is, self-care, all of it has to, and all of those are things that we choose to press into. We've got to almost have a sense of like leaning our life into those things. Like, how do you find those people that you can be honest with? Because, at the end of the day, if you're motivated by fear and shame, it's really hard to be open with people. If people have hurt you in your past, and have leveraged your guilt against you, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you begin to open yourself back up?
I think that, well, in my experience, once again, I had to go and I had to start to deal with myself in terms of emotions, right? And if emotions is energy, then energy has frequencies, right? So what I found is shame and fear vibrates at a frequency.
Sure.
Right? So they're vibrating at a really low frequency. What I found in my experience in life is the higher I start to vibrate, and therefore, and how do I do that? I don't focus on shameful things. I don't digest information in a shameful manner. So if I do something, I'm not going to do or not do something based on the fact that I'm ashamed of it, or I'm ashamed of what someone else would do or think, right? I do it based off the fact that, do I find truth in it? And what I found, the more and more I approach information in my reality like that, the more people like yourself, I would start to share the experience with, because we all vibrate at a certain frequency.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's not about a conscious choice to choose Harry over John, right? It's what's Harry on, what's John on.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to intellectualize it. All we have to do is empathize with it, right? So now, if I can feel both of these people, I know what perspective they're coming from, or what, more importantly, what frequency they're vibrating on. And if it's
I love that. Yeah.
Like love, compassion, understanding, those type things. My friends and my buddies are doing that, I should be okay. Right? Because chances are the 5 people that you spend the most time around, you're most like them. That's because you're vibrating at a certain frequency, right? Our philosophies don't have to agree or have to be parallel. We just have to be on the same positive search.
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of, did you watch Bird Box, the movie?
I did. You didn't? I did.
Oh, you did? When she's on like the CB or on the radio, and she's calling out, just waiting for someone to call back, and changing frequencies, and like you know what I'm saying? Like, I love what you're talking about, because eventually you're going to find people that talk the same language you talk. They have an understanding about life that you understand. Your worldview may look a little different. Like you're saying, philosophy may be different. Some of that's through learning and through experience. And we're all at a different place in our journey. But yeah, if you're vibing on a certain frequency, other people are going to vibe with you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Like, where'd this guy come from? It doesn't matter, because we're in a frequency. We're having fun. We're talking. We're learning. Absolutely, and that's just the experience. Once you experience that, we need to replicate it, so that becomes our experience. This is where we come in, Ryan. The ability to help others find understanding first. First off, why this is beneficial, and I think we've covered that. And secondly, okay, so how do you get there? Right?
Yeah.
Once you start to vibrate, you need to become addicted to the vibratory space, right? You need to become addicted to joy. You need to become addicted to fun and happiness. The same way you become addicted to depression. The same way we become addicted to shame.
And misery.
Misery
Loves company.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I saw with the families of the drug abusers. They were all on the same drug, Ryan. You know,
all of them are taking it.
Everybody's taking it, right? It's just some people go out to acquire their drugs from somewhere else, and some people basically create their drugs within their body based upon their thinking, and their thinking is based upon their frequency of what they recognize and what they're willing not to ignore, and the accountability they're willing to take. Well, we got that, Ryan. We can show people how to start to recognize it and take accountability, so that going back into how can this benefit corporate cultures, is that they're looking for something that will be repeatable and duplicated, so that they can get consistent results.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? How do we do that?
How do we do that?
Yeah,
you know, I think it starts with what you're talking about. It really starts with exemplifying that in leadership. I think it's about servant leadership. I think it's in the same way that I start asking myself, you know, how am I growing in empathy for others? How am I leading in that space? What am I choosing, and how am I vibing? You know, and recognizing that it really does require leadership to do this kind of work. You know, I mean, it becomes almost an expectation. You have a sense and a shift. There's a paradigm shift in leadership, and there's a reality of expectation that up and coming generations, current generation, comes into the workplace with an expectation in regard to, I mean, I'm asked all the time when I'm talking about culture of good or other businesses, and people are, you know, I'm constantly keeping a pulse on what people are looking for in terms of a workplace environment. More times than not, they are going to get to a place where they're asking the question, what's your leadership style?
Yeah.
How am I going to be led? Right. So there's a innate expectation kind of baked into the generation that if I'm going to go into a corporate job, I want to get paid well for my work. I want to know that my contribution matters. I want opportunity to grow and develop. I want opportunity to give back and do good in the world. That matters to me. But I also don't want to work for a leader that's an asshole, that's self-absorbed, that only cares about their own interests and not the interests of others. Like leadership, I think is crucial, because if it's not led and not led by example, then we can talk about empathy all day long, and about how important it is for us to have a culture within our organization that cares about others and desires to be there and to connect with people on an authentic level. But if as leaders we're not living that out, I mean, it just falls on deaf ears. It actually creates a culture of distrust. When I say as a leader, I want this in my organization, but I don't live it out myself, it creates skepticism. Absolutely. As it should.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely, Ryan, and that's fantastic because that also gives us an in terms of the need of what it is we can provide with empathy and with what you're doing, the culture of good, right? So it goes back to frequency. If you have a leader that's operating at a certain frequency,
Yeah.
right, and then you have that leader hires you or you're hired for some reason. A lot of times it's not even a leader that hired you. They could have been hired by someone else at a higher frequency, therefore they're at a higher frequency.
Right.
Not necessarily that the current manager that the problem is that he's an asshole. It's just that he's not vibrating at this level, so these guys aren't communicating, right? So our product is to bring anyone in a leadership role. You have to be here to lead anyone that's vibrating at lower frequencies. So listen, if we can address this and get them here, and they bring those the TAs or the people that are under them, if they bring them up here so that they can at least start to understand from the perspective of a leader, right? Then all of those other variables, right, will be taken care of under the fact that they've taken self-accountability, and now they can both set expectations, and they both understand the expectations. They can meet goals. They're happy doing it because remember, we're vibrating at a higher frequency. We're vibrating up here happy.
Yeah.
Here with shame, but you need leaders and you need teachers. You need healers like us to level or bring up that game, right? All of the processes and the operations, these people are smart people in these companies. I'm sure they'll be able to take care of those things. Right? I don't need to them
the skills.
Yeah, they're experts at what they do. I believe it and I know it to be true. But what they're not experts at, and what we find few experts of, is experts in emotion, right? And being able to do your emotions. So it doesn't make a difference how great you are or how great a job you'll do if you ever ate? You ever ate at a restaurant and the chef had an attitude problem?
Right. It doesn't matter how good the food is.
It doesn't make a difference what those GPS reports are saying if you've done it from a position of a lower frequency. Low frequency things will come out of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when we choose to have that higher frequency kind of life, what we're doing is sowing seed into our future. We're creating an environment where like you're saying, that same frequency will be attracted to us. Think about when we think about corporate culture, we think about the war on talent and the difficulty that companies have in differentiating themselves in the business space to attract new talent to their because unemployment is so low, like we not as though people aren't looking for better jobs, but they are looking for better jobs. I mean, that's the idea, right? So what makes you stand out in business has everything to do with who you are and what your personality is as an organization that's going to attract the same type of people to yourself, right? Like, what's the most compelling reason that you can give me that I should come work for you? What's the most compelling reason that you can give me as a customer that I should do business with you? It's not just you have this you sell this product or you have this service. It's who you are in the world. It's the position that you've taken as a business to care about the work, to care about people, to have that emotional kind of intelligence within a business, to have what we would call is like having a soul, right? Like that deep sense of who you are and knowing why you do what you do. That to me is the most compelling thing. And being able to tell that story in an authentic way means I have to really not only believe that's what I want to be, but that's who I am as a leader and as a business,
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't tell the tale unless you've experienced it. You said a lot of really great things there, Ryan, especially in concerns with the leadership. And I think if we're not addressing what we're talking about from at least the director level, and when I say director, this is going throughout all companies, right? All companies, but the reason I say that director level is because you have to have someone up there bringing up the frequency, right? So when I saw employment, right, I didn't necessarily seek something to do as much as I was seeking an organization that was vibrating on the same frequency that I was.
Sure. Yeah.
And TCC for me was vibrating on that frequency because it had a culture of good, or in other words, it was looking for higher understandings and how we can celebrate the people that we work with every day and address more than just their operation, the operational side of people, but to really to allow them to be who their authentic selves, to allow them to be their authentic selves, and through allowing them to be their authentic selves is where you really find that creativity, right? Because creativity is another one of those high frequency virtues. So through the culture of good, through allowing people to bring their souls to work, through allowing them to be their authentic selves, you create a safe space of trust where we are more creative. When we're on that shame, it breaks down all of the molecules in our body, and we're tight and we're stressed, and we just want to make it through the day, right? But when we're vibrating at those higher levels of happiness and joy, we're not working anymore. We're happy. We're just doing this. We're doing what we're meant to do, our purpose and why we came here, and we're doing it happily. We understand that now it's not as much about the company as about the people in the company, because it's the people that makes the company.
Yeah, I
right?
love that.
So if you're not addressing your people from an emotional perspective, my friend, you're just going to you're going to hire them, you're going to fire them, you're going to run through them, and they're not going to be better having left you. That's not happening at TCC, because I think of individuals like us, and because of the company vibrating on a higher frequency of searching and understanding, with Scott being at the Ram, that's how and why that happens, man. And it's a beautiful thing when it all comes together.
Yeah, I think the takeaway from this, really, for me, just as we're talking, I'm a very visual person, so I'm seeing like shame and fear over here, and the opposite, really, that stands opposite of shame isn't no shame. The opposite of shame for me is trust, right? It's because if I trusted you, I wouldn't have to put on a front. If I trusted you, I could show up fully. If I trusted you, then I could come empathetic into this relationship, into this connection, authentically, fully myself. I wouldn't have to build up walls or barriers or be focused on what am I going to have to lose by helping you gain, but fully trusting. And that, again, that goes back to, hey, that's going to take time, right?
Yeah.
And we have trust has to be grown, and we do that within the corporate culture. We do that because it's back to what you said. Companies are people. Business is a human endeavor. Life is a human endeavor. We are human. We feel. It is touchy feely. Right? We have feeling. We do have emotion. We do have the ups and downs, and we need people to show up for us. Not trying to fix what we're going through, not trying to give solutions to every problem in our life. Sometimes it's just fully showing up and being present and being an ear to listen, being a shoulder to cry on, allowing people to express who they are, what they're going through, where they're headed, and who they want to be when they get there. And saying with as genuine as you can from your own soul, I'm here every step of the way.
Yeah.
I may not understand it. I may not feel it. I don't know. You know, there's going to be times, Chris, you're going through stuff that I might not get. I might not get it, but I'm telling you right now, when you turn around, when you're walking through the best times of life and the worst times of life, I can guarantee you that regardless of what's going on, Ryan's going to be there. And that to me is like, that takes a level of trust that sometimes is hard to grab a hold of, and it's proven over time. But give it time and allow that culture and that relationship to continue to build. I think it's a beautiful mess, man.
Yeah, it is. Especially when you come to the realization that in order to trust, you have to be trustworthy first, right?
Absolutely.
And that shame kind of works hand in hand together. I have to trust that you won't shame me. But first, I have to trust that I will not be ashamed.
Right.
Right? So the compassion comes back to self first. The love comes back to self first. The trust comes back to self first. So you can only trust someone else as much as you can trust yourself, right?
That's it.
Because it's really about accountability. I don't trust that you know, and a lot of times in relationships, it's not a matter of trusting your mate to exhibit a certain behavior for the rest of their lives. What it is that we trust or don't trust is our reaction to it when it happens, right? Do we still love, and are we loving unconditionally? Does this act change, right? It's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself in there. So there's a lot to ignore or to pay love, right? But when you really dive into it, man, and you get that intestinal fortitude to see the truth as it is, not as we want it to be, then we can become the leaders that we aspire to be. Because then we'll be at the helm of the ship, right? We're not running around with like chicken with our heads cut off. We're intact, and we're leading with our emotions under control of the captain.
Yeah, love it, man. Captain of your own soul.
Captain, yeah. You are the captain of your ship. We are vessels, right? We are travelers, and we're traveling through this experience. And if we're not acting like, or if you're not being the captain of your experience, I guarantee you someone else is.
That's it, man. I love it, brother.
Yes, sir. I love
these conversations, man.
Yeah.
I learned so much from you. I really do.
Same here.
I appreciate you so much, man. It's good to be able to have conversations that feed my soul, you know, and that's how I feel after talking to you, that I feel fed, brother. I'm full.
Same here, brother. Stay here, and I appreciate it.